Let me begin with asking you all a very fantastic question, or rather very tough question. With a raise of hand, please help me understand that how many of you have ever ridden a two-wheeler? How many of you feel, keep your hand raised, if you feel that the handle of a two-wheeler is an important part? Keep your hand raised if you feel that the front wheel is an important part. Keep your hand raised if you feel that the rear wheel is an important part. Keep your hand raised if you feel that the carrier is an important part. Keep your hand raised if you feel that the pedals are the important part. Thank you so much for answering that. I love your participation. I'll come back to the questions in a little while. But before getting into that, let me show you a little scary picture. The scary picture is, according to a recent study which was done, it is said that out of the total graduates who are passing out of our country, only 46% of the graduates are employable. Let me make it a little more scary. According to the same study, it has also been said that the Indian workforce who is going to come out in coming years will need basic employability skills, and the percentage is more than 50% of these people who will need these kind of skills. So what are these employability skills that we are looking out for? Decision making, number one. Problem solving, basic communication, team building, critical thinking. Now this is just the beginning of the list. I'm not going to share the complete list with you all. Right? But coming back to the point, and why there is so much of disparity between the people who are getting passed out from the institutions and the expectations of the organizations. Why there is so much of disparity, right? So the disparity is simply because there is a big gap. Now what is this big gap is, and I was getting restless when I was into organization, and I started understanding that why this particular big gap is there. So I realized that the expectations of the organizations from the institutions or from the students and the expectations of students from the organizations are not matching. They are absolutely two poles apart. And that is something which was creating this particular gap. And let me take you back to the same questions that I asked. According to my understanding, what I understood out of my experience and my interactions which were happening, right? The gap has been created only because of one simple factor, that we are continuously focusing on to one of the parts of this two-wheeler. If we relate this two-wheeler to our lives, and if we put as the skills that we are learning as the front wheel, and the skills that makes us ensure that we are having the balance of our two-wheeler, that is the rear wheel, that's the soft skills, that we put it onto the rear wheel, we are putting major focus onto the front wheel part. We are learning everything. Technically, we are learning everything, right? Whatever is giving us the direction into the organizations today, our career or our lives, we are putting every focus on the front wheel, no doubt about it. But what is more important, which is going to help us to sustain into that organization or the growth, that is rear wheel, we are not putting any kind of focus onto it. And that is why this big gap is being created. That is something which made me realize that this is something which is going to create a huge challenge in coming times. And that is something which I realized, and I started working onto it, but that was something in my mind. Right? I was just having a thought in my mind, no actions towards it. And at that particular point of time, as everybody, as a normal person does, I was into corporate for almost 10 good years. I used to take my frustration back home and I used to share it with my family. I shared this experience with a couple of times with my father, right? And having that interaction, I probably have said this multiple times to him. And he got irritated one day. Because of repeated cribbing that I used to do at home, he got irritated one day. And he was sitting in front of me and he gave the exact body language that I'm doing right now. He folded his hand like this and he gave me a stern look. And I was continuously cribbing and he was listening to me very patiently. I was, very irritated, I was agitated, I was disturbed, and I was like, somebody should do something. The things are not going good. Somebody should do something. He heard it for 3 to 4 times, 10 times probably. And one fine day he said that, he was sitting like this and he asked me, Aniruddha, just tell me one thing. Why you are expecting somebody else to do something? Why can't you take that responsibility of doing something? This one particular point stayed with me for a very long period of time. I started calculating everything, that can I take that responsibility of getting in ahead and doing some change or bringing in some change. And that is where I realized, and in 2013, I moved out of corporate and I started working closely with students. across the geography of this country. I traveled across the geography. I interacted with most of the students to understand what is their expectation from the industry. What they are looking out for, that is something which I started working on. And not only that, I also got an opportunity to interact with the people who are who's who of the industry. The directors, the founders, the VPs, the presidents and all that. So I was fortunate enough to have an interaction with them. And whatever I just shared some time back, the gap that was getting focused, that was getting concretized, if I correct it. Right? And that is when I realized that this one particular gap, and overall the interactions that I had with students as well as the organizations, I realized and I understood that the organizations which are the skills that they are looking out for, and the students that how they can grow in their life, they mota fall into 4 skills only. To put it in Hindi, आप दुनिया का कोई भी स्किल अगर आप सीखना चाहते हो तो वो सारे स्किल्स अगर आप इन 4 स्किल्स के अंदर डाल दें तो आप वो स्किल्स आराम से सीख सकते हो, if I put it in Hindi, right? But if I put it like that, the 4 major skills which are required, or the foundation which is required by any individual to grow in their career, be it your job, be it your business, be it your family business that you want to grow. Everything falls under these 4 pillars, the 4 foundations. What would I would call it as observation, the first one. Second is patience. Third is empathy. And fourth is the network. Let me take you into the detail of it. It's a beautiful picture, right? That's me and my son, right? To share this observation, I would like to share, one very interesting fact, that all human beings are by default observers. We learn by observation. But unfortunately, in the process of growing up, somewhere we lose the process of observing. And I realized this is very important when I became a father and my kid was watching me doing multiple things at the same time. One day he was playing with something close to a window, and by playing, he was his age, 3.5 years age. Something fell out of his hand, out of the window, and me being a normal parent, I reacted the way generally normal parents react. And my reaction was obviously not very good, right? But he kept it in his mind. After 8 days, I was working something close to that window, something fell out of my hand. And he gave me the same reaction that I gave him around 8 days back. And I was shocked. I asked him that, what exactly, why did you do that? So he also gave me a very beautiful look, and he said, isn't that the same reaction that you gave me around 8 days back? I was like, oh yeah, that's actually the truth, right? And that is the moment I realized that it's actually true. We learn by observation, and best observers are the kids. We can learn everything, whatever we want to learn in our life, through observation. That is the easiest way of learning everything, right? So that is the point which I think that it's very important for us to observe things and learn. But observation doesn't happen on its own. It needs the second skill. That brings me to the second point, that is patience. Your patience is not tested when you have something and you're dreaming about something. Your patience is actually tested when you don't have anything, but you still dare to dream something. That is something which happened with me when I started with this journey. I was not, very well-to-do at that particular time when I started with this journey, right? But I still had a dream to follow, and I decided that, okay, whatever happens, it is just the temporary phase, but I'll keep that patience. Now, to reiterate my point, I would like to ask all of you, how many of you have television sets at your home with a remote control? Oh, lovely, everybody is having it. Now, I'm sure if you can relate to the example that I'm going to share. You're sitting in front of a television set, you want to change the channel. Your remote is in your hand. You press the button, but the remote doesn't operate. And the channel doesn't change. Right? You do it 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times. Still, the remote is not working. What is the first reaction that we all do? How many can relate to that? Everybody, right? It's simply because whenever we are, because of this, instant food and instant delivery of everything, the first thing that is going out of our life is patience. Even the electronic items are not safe in our hands, by the way. Right? The moment they are not working, that is the first reaction that we do. Right? So the only point which I would like to share here is, please have patience. Things will take time if you want to bring in change into your life or somebody else's life. What is more important is having the patience. That brings me to the third point, because patience also doesn't work on its own. You need to connect with people, and for connecting, what is more important is empathy. And empathy also doesn't go like that. right? I was a very naughty kid in my, school days. I used to make fun of students, other students, tease them, bully them at times also. I have done all that things, right? One day I was coming back from school, so my mom probably saw me that I am teasing somebody, right? At that particular point, she didn't say anything. 3-4 days she let that everything pass by. मेरे दिमाग से भी चीज़ निकल गई. 8 दिन के बाद she also was sitting next to me and she started teasing me. 1 घंटा हो गया, 2 घंटा हो गया, 4 घंटे के बाद मेरा दिमाग गरम. And my mom was also like, she was continuously doing the same thing, because of which I was getting irritated and agitated. And I asked her that, why you are again repeatedly teasing me? And she said that, isn't that the same thing that you are doing with other students that day? And that was the point I realized that, I am doing something which is not expected. And that particular point stayed with me for a long period of time. I went into college. There was a boy in my college at that particular point. He was being teased and bullied by other boys, right? And when I got to know that this is something which is happening with him, I ensured that I am standing with him whenever the people are, going to tease him or, make fun of him. I didn't realize what I was doing at that particular point of time, but after 3 or 4 years, I remember I got an email in my mail ID saying thank you. I opened that mail out of curiosity and I saw that the same boy has sent me a mail saying thank you to me. I said what exactly it is for, so I just read it ahead. He said that on that particular day when you stood by me, when the people were coming to me and make fun of me, you were the only one who stood by me. You were the only one who realized that I'm going through some kind of a pain. And you realized that particular point of time, I realized that I had saved somebody's life, because in the next part of his mail he mentioned, I was about to leave the city. I was about to leave the institution. And if this would have continued, I probably would have left the world also. Just because of being empathetic towards people, I realized that it is very much important to connect with people. Everything is getting automated. We all agree to this? Everything is getting automated nowadays in the organizations. But if anything which cannot be automated is the human interaction, is the emotional intelligence. Nowadays organizations are looking out for people who are emotionally intelligent. Yes or no? Right? So that is the reason empathy is an important aspect, which is a foundation. And that empathy also doesn't have work on its own. It needs the fourth skill. That brings me towards it, network. I remember in 2020, it's a pandemic. Everybody knows that was a very not good time for everybody. Right? In one of the WhatsApp group that I am a part of, I received a message at around 11:30 at night. It says that in one part of our country, somebody needs a plasma donor. I saw that message. I said, okay, ठीक है, बहुत सारे messages आते हैं, हम लोग छोड़ देंगे. But somehow I recollected that I have a student who is into organizing or helping people with the blood donation. So somehow I had his number. I took that message and sent it to him. I was not expecting anything. I was like, probably he will not respond. I was surprised. It was 12:15 at midnight. He replied back by calling directly. He said, sir, you sent me a message. The plasma donor is arranged and the person will be saved. Don't worry about it. I was completely shocked to know that just because he's having that kind of a network across the country, I don't know how many people he probably might have saved during those COVID times, right? But it could happen just because he is having a network of it. I got an opportunity to grow to different kind of organizations and institutions and interact with hundreds of people. It's just simply because I could network with people. That is also because it is an important skill, because when you interact with people, you probably get to learn more things that which probably none of the books can teach you. That is something which I learned out of this networking. And that brings me, if you see very closely all these words and take the first alphabet of all these words, you will come across a very beautiful word that is called as open. What is open? What does it opens? How does it works? What is the benefit of it for an individual that it is open, right? So the open is giving you an opportunity to interact with people. Open is opening multiple possibilities for you. It is actually opening the whole context of our life. That is something which open does to you. And if anybody wants to grow in their life, I believe this open can open doors of opportunities for you all. And with that, I would like to end this. And I would like to leave you with a beautiful quote, which I think which definitely relates to it, which says, keep an open mind. It's the only way new things can get in. Thank you so much.